Hey, this is the franchise Shane Douglas, ECW's original World Heavyweight Champion. Right now, you're watching the #1 wrestling podcast on all of Long Island, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
And you're watching the Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 Monty and Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and Pharaoh.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
To the Monty and the Pharaoh Show. And it's Monty and the Pharaoh, baby.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, what a run.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, cut music. When you want the best in professional wrestling, Long Island, there's only one place you're going to get it, right here.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best. That, my friends, is just incredible.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
You've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, and MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff, and we're gonna rock it.
Straight to the top. We're living this life, not just dreaming it, we're doing it for real. Straight to the top. Working hard every day just to leave out that tower.
The left is, well, for me, is an oh my God moment.
Yeah, it is.
It is
absolutely.
Barry Windham. I usually don't mark out, man, but I am marking out right now. Did you always know you're going to be a professional wrestler? Right? You come from the, your father, Blackjack Mulligan, incredible superstar again.
When I was growing up in Odessa, Texas, I went with my dad to the Ector County Coliseum, and we saw Dory Funk Sr. fight. And my dad was, I guess he knew the Funks, or they had talked to him or something, but that's why he was there. And that was the first time I saw it, and that's where I was born. I'd been to all kinds of events at the Ector County Coliseum, and it was just something different about wrestling. I knew then I was going to do it.
Yeah.
How much did you pattern yourself after Dad in the ring style?
Well, I mean, I really tried to be different than him because I wasn't as big as him, and he just wasn't really a technical wrestler, and so I tried to learn as much as I could. But as far as the brawling and all that, I guess it's all just genetic.
Yeah.
So I guess that just came natural.
Our first memories of you were back in the days when we had the old UHF channel up here in New York, and we used to flip to the UHF,
Yeah.
and we would get Florida Championship Wrestling, and I used to live for the night where it would come in nice and clear without the fuzz, without the snow. But hey, it's the truth though. This was the early 80s, and here we were on UHF, and we lived in New York, and we wanted our Barry Windham. This is where we first saw you. So I wanted to ask you, can you tell us your memories of Gordon Soley? And do you feel like he's the greatest announcer of all time, because many say he is?
Gordon was all alone by himself as far as announcer. I mean, he did so much, and he was just one of the, as far as I remember, as far as television, he was a real barnstormer or a trendsetter, but because he just just the way he talked, the way he described the matches, I've done it myself, hi, backdrop, you just can't forget, and you just grew up with him.
Was Soley like smoking cigarettes while he was announcing on the side when he wasn't on camera?
He kept this is before the big gulp. He had like a 64-ounce stainless steel cup that was gin and water, and he kept a pack of cigarettes that he smoked and drank during the whole show. And then whenever he was on camera, he was there.
And he was straight.
Oh, yeah.
That's hilarious.
He came across as razor straight too. Wow.
But afterwards, he was blitzed.
Lex Luger came through Florida. You guys had a little bit of a connection in the beginning there before your careers move on, then you meet again. What were your opinions on Luger when he first came in, and as a human being, not even a wrestler?
Well, when I was in Florida wrestling, it was 1985 or 86, I think, and Magnum had his wreck in Charlotte, and he was a real good friend of mine, so I went up there, and Dusty asked me if I'd come to work while I was there, because Magnum was out, and I said I would. And I told him, I said, there's a guy down there that you need to see, is Luger. He's a phenomenal looking athlete, and he can learn too. And Dusty listened to me, and he brought him up there. So I mean, it's just, that's just how the business works. You see somebody that has potential, you want to try to move them up.
But you grew up with a wrestling family, and you hear rumors that Luger wasn't proud to be a professional wrestler. He was kind of embarrassed of it. Did you get that feeling being involved with him?
Well, I was just with Luger last week, and he's such a different person now that it's just.
Does he get a bad rap?
Even he admits, that he was that way.
Okay.
What did he call it? He called it flex time. Whenever he was being egotistical and whatever, he just called it flex time, and it was just something that he called it. And his wife knew what he meant, and his friends all knew what flex time was, and that was just how he was. But he just he's a different guy now.
You get together with Mike Rotundo, and of course this team becomes insanely hot. How did you two get together?
I met Rotundo in Toronto when I was working for Mid-Atlantic as Blackjack Mulligan Jr., and I was wrestling John Studd that night up there, and Rotundo came in the dressing room with Dick Beyer, and he introduced himself, and I sat and talked to him, because he was like my age, and all the other guys were 10, 15 years older in the dressing room. And, we just hit it off there.
Was it the pinnacle to reach the WWF at the time, or the WWE, or was that a misnomer and, the NWA was just as good?
As far as WWE being the pinnacle, I'm sure it was to some guys, but to me, it was just another job. And I just never hit it off with Vince, like my dad did. So I guess that's why he held me back.
Well,
Vince was running, he had 3 teams, an A, B, and C squad, so he was running 3 towns a night. So nobody had any time off. It was brutal.
What was the issue yourself with Vince? Was he standoffish to you, or what was it about Vince that rubbed you the wrong way?
I just never really hit it off with him. I just never had I always had a relationship with whoever I was working with, or the bookers, or the owners.
Any thoughts on Murdoch and Adonis?
Dickie was he was one of those talents that, he could have been world champion. He could have been anything he wanted to be, but he just screwed around all the time in the ring, and he was a true talent.
So you didn't take it serious, is what you're saying?
No.
Did you ever have problems with Adonis at all, personally?
I never had personal problems with him, but it was
just not a nice guy.
Hey, how you doing?
Define Dick Murdoch not taking it seriously. What would he do in the ring that would be,
Well, like he would take bumps and do like Curly and the Three Stooges.
What was your favorite tag team to work with, if you have one?
Favorite tag team to work with? Probably Arn and Tully, or the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, they were good.
Man, everybody says Rock and Roll Express.
They're just so easy to work with, and they sell everything. And
Was working with the Iron Sheik hard? Was he high half the time when he was in the ring with you? Yeah, you're like, Mike, you take this one. I'm going to sit on the outside of the ropes.
Barry the Windham.
he would always find a room or a hallway in one of the buildings off by himself and go do Hindu squats.
Hindu squats.
While doing Hindu squats. That's pretty good.
This is strange, though. I'm getting the sense you still felt safe in the ring with him. Sheik's just high and flinched, and he was doing his squats in the back. It's all good. You can dump me on my head.
Well,
I trust you.
Usually he bickered so much with Nikolai back and forth.
Oh, really?
Oh, my
Really?
God.
So
Me and Rotunda would stand back and just look at him.
And just laugh the whole time. That's hilarious.
We have to look for this on the network. We have to.
There was a spot that we did almost every night, and it was where Nikolai hooked my arms behind my back on the ropes, and Sheik would go and hit the opposite rope and come and hit me with a knee. Well, Nicky grabbed me, but when the Sheik was coming, he threw me away, and Sheik went over the top and he clipped the top rope. This is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He clipped the top rope on his ankle and did like a 3 somersault and landed flat on his back.
Ooh.
And me and Rotundo and let's see, I think that Captain Lou was there because he was all over it. I mean, he was like, "Did you see that?"
Let's talk about WrestleMania. Did you know what this was going to be when you experienced the first WrestleMania, or was it just another day of going into work? Or what was this like for you?
No, I mean, it was really built up within the company. You know, it was built up for several months. I would say probably at least 6 months before. It was really a letdown to a lot of the guys because we all thought we'd been told these payoffs we were going to get, and everybody was putting down payments on boats and cars. And houses.
Oh, no. Tell us about returning to WCW and becoming, basically, in our opinion, part of the greatest faction of all time with the Four Horsemen. How'd that go down?
Well, I mean, I had worked with Flair so many times up to that point, and you know, we were looking at something to make an impact, and that would change up the roster, you know, to where I could work with all those baby faces. And you know, we talked about it for a couple of months before we did it, and we planned it out, and you know, I think we did it okay.
Is Ric Flair your greatest opponent in the ring? I'm just curious. I've watched several 60-minute encounters with you and Flair. Is he your favorite all-time opponent if you had to pick one?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, you know, just for the way that we gelled, the chemistry that we had, and how a match would flow. And you know, we never even had to talk about a match or anything. We just went out there and just did it.
We had a couple of guys in here, though. They said, you know, you saw one Flair match, you've seen them all. Did you feel that way?
Well, I mean, he kind of got in a rut there after a while, you know, where you do the same turnbuckle spot.
He was going there. I knew it. Right. That's hilarious, though. Oh, my God.
Yeah, but that was just part of his character. So, yeah. I mean, it's just... guys are going to do that, you know, because they see him every night, but the fans don't see him every night, and they don't look at it that way. So it's just, I mean, it's hard to go out there and have a different match every night with the same guy 300 nights in a row.
Did you guys you wrestled so many times, did you get bored? Did you play tricks on each other in the ring?
We know about Murdoch.
Yeah, there's a lot of clowning, or there was a lot of clowning around in the ring. You know, we'd tell each other jokes, try to crack each other up.
Was being a horseman really, like they say, like you guys were partying all night long, every night? Was that part of your deal? Women every night, drinking, drugging every night?
It was just the way that we were trying to sell the show, too. So, you know, we would go out every night, but you know, Rick would announce it on the promos for whatever town it was, where we were going and where we were going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. How many people showed up to that?
It was.
Oh God.
it was usually pretty busy.
Are you married during that time?
Yeah.
All right. Then I'll pass on that question.
Bischoff was really a sharp guy, and still is. You know, I just think that he let all the egos get him, and you know, when you're paying that many guys that much money, and
The inmates took over.
yeah, they did.
The inmates took over. He made Vince sweat bullets, though. He's the only one who truly did. He made him sweat bullets. How about Crockett?
Jimmy was a good boss, but he just, you know, I haven't talked to Jimmy in a long time, but you know, he was good to work for, and I had a good relationship with him. But it just, I guess he just let it get away from him, you know, when he had to sell it to TBS. I mean, we were running a jet airplane and a G1 every night all over the country, and we were a small crew. So it was just, it just wasn't ready to pop yet. So it was just a little before its time, I think.
What's more important for a professional wrestler, mic skills or mat skills?
I think now, mic skills, where it used to be mat skills and ability in the ring. But if a guy can really talk good and sell himself, then he doesn't really have to do that much in the ring. Windham is really a real creative mind, or Bray, and a lot of that stuff he can just come up with on his own. And he just I don't really think I was strong on the mic. You know, there was a time when I could talk on the mic, but you got to practice those skills and hone them all the time. And, you know, I try to stay away from doing as much of this stuff as I can.
Does Barry Windham belong in Hall of Fame as a single wrestler?
Well,
yes. I'm sorry. I couldn't sit there and let him ponder.
compared to the other guys that are in, I guess
I
yes.
wanted to ask you about your match with the Great Mutad Super Brawl. Where do you rank that in your career? Thoughts on Mutad, too?
I didn't really like the match,
Really?
and
Okay. A lot of fans that do.
Muda really didn't want to, you know, he didn't want to drop the title. He didn't want to put me over. But, you know, it was just, I just know that he had a lot more in the tank that he gave that night. And it was hard pulling it out of him and trying to get him to do stuff. And that was just what I remember. You know?
For you, it was very frustrating.
I thought it was my night. And I had spent so much of my career being focused on that world title, you know, working with Flair and going to our Broadways everywhere, and it was just, he left over money and he took everything with him, you know. And I was just so pissed off at him at that time, you know, because of what he did, you know, because he hurt our business and our company and all the business the way he did it. But, you know, we talked about it a couple of years later, and we smoothed it all over. But, well, yeah, I was pretty pissed off for a while.
So you're a big guy naturally. Your father was a big guy. How did you ever hit the gas?
Oh, the gas. Come on, Fast and Furious.
Thought about it.
Thought about it, okay.
There was a doctor in Hershey, Pennsylvania that all the boys would get stuff from. And I just remember, you know, all the guys going in and seeing him and coming out with shopping bags full of stuff.
Thank God.
What's going on there? Rotundo and I were the young guys in the dressing room. We didn't know what was going on.
Hey.
So we had to get somebody to turn us on to what was going on, and it took a while to do that.
So many wrestlers, right, that have passed away. You know, you with Kurt Hennig towards late in your career. Did you know Kurt had a major drug problem, or did he have a major drug problem? And do you feel guilty at any point that maybe you could have stopped him? Because you seem like you've lived a pretty straight and directed life, you know?
Well, I mean, I knew Kurt liked pills, and while I was around him, you know, with the West Texas Rednecks, he and Bobby would travel together, and they would get zoned out of their minds. But never when he was working. You know, he was never messed up when he was working. It was just always afterwards, and I don't know why. You know, I spent a lot of time with Kurt and talked to him about it. I guess his wife had been injured, and she was on pain medication, and he was too, and it was just a bad mix.
When did you get the news that he passed away?
I found out that day. I'm trying to think who called. I think Bill Alfonso called me and told me. But yeah, it was just a bad deal. I mean, I've lost a lot of my close friends. Mike Graham.
You know, a lot of people don't talk about Mike Graham a lot. Mike, you know, from a fan's perspective, seemed like he was okay. From what I understand, his father committed suicide, and then Mike committed suicide. Did you know Mike had problems, or?
Well, when Mike's father, Eddie, committed suicide.
And by the way, I'm not making light of this at all. Billy Jack Haynes was in here, and Billy Jack claims that Vince killed Eddie Graham to take over his territory. Just throwing that out there. And you know, let's talk about Mike and Eddie, and then maybe you could talk about Billy Jack.
Well, Eddie killed himself, and Mike took it really hard. I mean, you know, it was his dad, and you know, he really idolized his father. But then his son killed himself. About a year, or it may have been 2 years before he did. And he just, the day his son killed himself, his girlfriend called me and told me that Mike was a wreck. And I talked to him, and every time that I talked to him after his son killed himself, he asked me to bring him a gun. And you know, I told him, I said, I'm not going to bring you a gun. He said, where's your gun? Let me in your car. I know you got a gun under your seat. And I wouldn't carry my gun when I was around him for that purpose, because he was so set on it. But the night that he killed himself, his girlfriend, or his wife, then told me that they'd been out on Bike Week in Daytona in October, the October Bike Week, and they'd been out on the main street, and they went back to their condo or their house where they were staying. And Mike laid down on the couch and said that he would be out in a minute, and that for her to go on. And when she got to the bottom of the stairs, she heard the shot. He wasn't himself the last couple of years after his son died. And yeah, I was just such close friends with him. It was just I was really, really pissed off at him for probably 4 or 5 years for killing himself. Yeah, you just can't believe that when somebody does that.
If you could do it over and over again, would you not be a professional wrestler?
Oh. Oh, man.
Just seems to be so much, as much as we all love what you guys have done.
It's a pretty heavy price.
It's a heavy price that you guys pay. And everybody's got a life problems, but it seems much more in the wrestling world.
It's just, everybody has to live life, and everybody lives life differently.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is just the way that I've lived, and I really don't know any other way, so I wouldn't do anything different.
Ole Anderson. Thoughts on Ole?
He's smiling already.
Ole, my old man hated Ole. We had a match. It was one of our first matches as the Blackjacks, me and my dad, and we were against Ole and Gene in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was selling, and evidently my old man didn't like the way I was selling, because I was selling too much, or he thought Ole was hitting me or whatever. And he stomped into the ring and he punched Ole square in the face and knocked him out.
Knocked him cold.
Gene came and got me, brought me over to the corner. He said, just let him do their leave him alone. It'll be over before you know it. Oh man, just over him, just pelting him, and then goes back and gets out of the ring, stands on the corner. Ole. He was a bloody mess, but I mean, I watched my dad beat him up at least 3 or 4 different times.
Jeez.
I don't know. It was just something about Ole that he didn't like. So my old man didn't like Ole, so Ole didn't like me.
Do you feel that you surpassed your father's career?
Ooh, interesting.
No.
Why not?
No, I mean, well, I mean, I still wear his hat, you know. So it's just, it's just, I don't know if it's respect or love or what, but you know, he was my dad.
Did you ever have a shoot match, like something went down in the ring that you weren't happy with? You had to stand your ground?
Not really. I mean, you know, there were a lot of guys that I had to move around and put in position and, you know, basically do their thinking for them. But that's just the way it is. You know, not everybody is up to the same par. And but I never had any fights or anything in the ring. You know, I always tried to have the best match that I possibly could when I was in there. So if somebody was around, I was like, quit let's do this.
Does Vince McMahon owe wrestlers like yourself who have built this industry into a publicly traded company lifetime medical, pension? Something. What are your feelings on that?
Something.
Well, I mean, we all gave our bodies, and it was our choice.
True.
But I mean, he does run a hard ship to work on. I think there should be health insurance for the guys, and it wouldn't be any big deal for him to set up, you know, a retirement for the guys where they put their own money back, and if they match, I mean, they're $1 billion company. They could do it.
All right, final question. What was the biggest payday Barry Windham received?
90 grand, and the most I made in a year was $1.4 million.
Wow.
Nice.
Sweet.
And well deserved.